Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where we've got this mess going on. Okay, so there are several problems here. One, they are facing objectively the wrong direction. Now, let's go ahead and find ourselves this hex right here, our very first hex. Now, they are currently facing forward rather than the up we'd like them to be, and that is because our mesh is at 0 degrees. So if we go to -90, looks like, that is the correct direction we want the mesh to be facing. So if you look here, you see that the mesh is at 0 degrees in the prefab, the base hex is the one at -90 degrees. So let's go ahead and change that. So let's change the base hex to 0 degrees and the mesh to -90 degrees. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that. Excellent. And now, if we run this, it should place them facing the correct direction. Now, obviously we've got a big ol' overlap problem, but that's to be expected, all things considered. Now, there are some fancy ways to do hex maps. I'm not sure if we'll actually do that, because it doesn't matter a huge amount to the end user. It just matters to us as programmers. However, first things first, I would like to go into our mesh here and make a few changes. Now, the first change I would like to make is I would like to grab all of our outside vertices here and just extrude down 1 unit. Just because this is a bit of future-proofing here. We are planning for there to be height involved. I do want these to be probably a different material. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a new material and call this, I don't know, cliff material. I guess that'll work. And we'll assign that to that. And then the other thing that I would like to do for these hexes is I'd actually like to inset this border ever so slightly. So I'd like to extrude this down and move this down. How much is the question? Just on the Z-axis. Hang on a moment. It didn't do screencast keys. Oh well. So I'm going to extrude with E, grab down on the Z-axis with GZ, like so, and we're going to move it down, I don't know, -0.02? That seems a bit much. -0.01. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete these faces. We do not need them, I guess. And we don't need this to be going back up, since that will be covered by... Oh, nope. Since that will be covered, we only want to delete edges and faces. Okay, that's fine. That could have gone better, but we'll go ahead and do this. That will be covered by our tiling system, so that's fine. We'll go ahead and do this with the border material. There we go. We do not need this vertex. Come on over here, do the same thing. Border material, don't need this vertex. There are easier ways to do this, but I messed it up. So let's just go ahead and do it this way. Oh, we need to have that border material on. Excellent. And let's go ahead and do that. And do that. Excellent. Okay, and now I'm just going to extrude this down. Not to any particular position, because we need it at -1, and we moved this down 0.1, so I just didn't feel like doing the mental math. And then we'll make that have cliff material. And there we go. There's our new hex mesh. Go ahead and save that. Unity will automatically import it and make all of the necessary changes. We don't need to worry at all about any of that. So now if we run it, well, we're gonna still see some pretty major issues. Yeah, still quite major issues. For one thing, it doesn't seem to have imported it all. Hang on a moment. Did I save it in the wrong place? No, it's right here. Refresh? Refresh the mesh? No? Okay, I guess we'll remake the base hex. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do this. create empty. Call this base hex once more. Stick it into the game object. Game object at 0, base hex at -90. Okay, and we will just simply call this base hex. Stick that into the prefabs. Did that go into the assets folder? It did. Put that into the prefabs folder and make sure we stick that into our hex manager. Excellent. Now it should be updated. It should have updated as it was. I'm not sure why it didn't, but this is now what we've got ourselves. And it's looking pretty decent, actually. I'm okay with that. May want to have this lip be colored the border as well. I don't know. We can change that. Very, very easily. We'll hop on into here, and we'll just color this lip to be the border material as well. And then Unity should re-import it, and we shouldn't have to recreate it again. Theoretically. Yeah, that's working correctly. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to make it so that it's actually spacing the hexes correctly. Because right now, it's spacing them as if they were squares. They are not squares. Now, we're currently pointy-topped hexes, and I think that's okay. I don't see any need to necessarily change that. I don't know. Maybe we should be flat-topped hexes. This is the time to change it if we want to. So the way to change that would be to very easily just rotate it, 30 degrees on the y-axis, I think? Yep, 30 degrees. Excellent. Okay, so with that being the case, we now have flat-top hexes. Yeah, I'm feeling the flat-top hexes a bit better. So, this is what we've got right now. Now, obviously, we need to know what the distance from the center to the top of our hex is, because that's the amount that we offset vertically by. So, let's go ahead and run a quick check here. What is our... where is it here? Edge length. Edge length. What is our length from here to here? Well, we appear to have a spare vertex here. There we go. Let's just do a quick remove doubles, just to make sure that's not the case anymore. Okay, so from here to here is 0.99, and then to here would be 0.1. So our distance internally here is 0.1 along our long axis. So our width is 0.1, so we need to head into our hex manager script. And let's just go ahead and have ourselves public float width equals 0.1 f. Okay, and then with that being the case, we then need to determine what is our scaling here when we imported. So let's just go ahead and hop into our prefabs here, pull this guy out, and let's take a quick look here. It looks like we are actually 1 unit. So that's actually 1 unit exactly in width. It's just because Blender was, I believe, in local units, not in global. Yeah, 0.99. So I was just wrong. It's 1 unit. It's not 0.1 unit, it's 1 unit. So that is our width along this long edge here. That is not our width along here. Now, I know from working with these basic sizes that this width is 0.866. So we can go ahead and have our public float height be 0.866. So we can then multiply our j times height. That's probably not going to work. Let's find out, shall we? I'm kind of making this up as I go along. Excellent. So what do we got? We've got ourselves way too much space here. Okay. Now, why do we have ourselves way too much space? Well, let's find out. So this hex is at 000, whereas this hex is at 0020. Well, that's exciting. That's very exciting indeed. So, I didn't mean to go into Blender. So let's go back into here and try to figure out why that's going to 20 immediately. Well, I think in part it's because... let's see here. J times height. Let's just try something. It shouldn't be I. I would be width, J would be height. Oh, I know what the problem is. It's multiplying by this height, not this height. So we need to go ahead and change this to hex width and hex height. There we go. That's a little bit better. Hex height. I'm surprised the compiler wasn't throwing an error there. Yeah, that's because this is capitalized. There you go. I'm surprised that the compiler didn't throw a hey, this is a bit ambiguous warning there. But whatever. Okay, so now we can see that we are at the right-ish height. We just need to multiply by 2. Excellent. So, I keep going into Blender. So let's just go ahead and do 2 times J times hex height. Like I said, I'm kind of making this up as we go. There we go. So if we go into isometric mode, you can see we have a perfect border here now. We just don't have a perfect border with our width. Now, it bears noting that this is still not quite the way we want to do things, but we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. So, first things first, I just want to run a quick check. Yeah, that's looking pretty decent. So now we just need to get the width correct. So the width is 1 times 2. So I think we just need to do basically the same thing here. 2 times, not x, 2 times I times hex width. So that'll just multiply by 1, but if we had a different size hex, that would be good. So let's go ahead and go into here and see what that did for us. It will be weird. Okay, so this right now is assuming that we have a hex grid, or not that we have a hex grid, that we have a square grid-ish. So you can see our horizontal positions are right-ish, and our vertical positions are right-ish. But what do we have to do to actually make this fit in? Well, there's a couple of things that we have to do. But the major thing is we need to offset each alternate column by a little bit. Here, I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. What we need to do to make this a proper hex grid is bring this down by half the height, and then this over by not quite half the width. So a position of x of 1.5 would be correct, and then a position of z of negative 0.866. And then we need to alternate each of these, which is going to be exciting, because then this one, you see, comes over here to be negative 1. So we need to get this row making this pattern, because then this one would come down another negative 0.866, and then would be over here, which would be at negative 1.5. Now, of course, these are local positions because we're moving the mesh. These are not where these would actually go, but this is what we need, and then we need to be offsetting each of these rows. So, for each of these, we need to be determining where we need to be exactly. Because, like, for example, this one would need to be just right here at negative 2. And then we just make that honeycomb pattern. So, the way that we're going to handle this is something that I have not yet quite worked out. So we need to determine, essentially, if it's even or if it's odd. However, the distance between these is not, in fact, going to be precisely what we thought it would be. The distance between these on the x-axis is in fact going to be, as you can see here, 1.5, not 2. So let's go ahead and head into here and change this from 2 to 1.5 floating point number. And then let's run that. So we're going to have significant overlap here, but you can see that if we move this down, it would be in the correct position. So all we need to do now is determine whether we are on an even or an odd number. And then we need to just move it down based on that. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a float reposition. And we'll say that's currently negative 0.866f. Actually, I'm not going to hard code that. It's negative hex height. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and leave this the way it is. And then we will just add in reposition. Now that's going to do it for everything right now. So what we need to do is we need to determine if j is even or odd. And as for how we're going to do that, I don't actually know quite yet. Let's see here. Here we go. This is like basically what I'm looking for right here. We need to use the modulus operator. Yeah, that's right. I've done that before. So what we need to do is we need to determine the number's remainder when divided by 2 equals 0. So what we need to do is we need to say if j mod 2 equals 0. So what this does is this divides j by 2, and then the modulus operator returns the remainder. So if there is no remainder, we know it's even. If there is a remainder, we know it's odd. So if there is a remainder, if there is no remainder here, then reposition equals this right here. So we can go ahead and cut this and paste this here. And then here we can say reposition equals 0f. So if it is an odd number, then it's not going to reposition at all. If it's an even number, it will subtract the hex height. So let's see how that works. The coordinate system here is still going to be a little bit strange, and it doesn't seem to have worked correctly. Let's see here. So, okay. Well, it certainly did something interesting. Let's see, if j mod 2 blah 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 minus hex height, and then we add that. Okay, so why didn't that work is the question that I have right now. And the answer is almost certainly user error. I mean, it's definitely user error. Let's see here. Well, we may have to cast j into a float. Because if it's trying to divide an integer, it'll return an integer. Well, that didn't do the trick. Okay, I keep going back into Blender. I have no idea why I'm doing that. So if this is equal to 0, and we'll try doing everything in floating point numbers. All the floating points. Nope. Okay. So the question then is, what's going wrong here? So j is equivalent to our current height point. Actually, I'm going to change these. So that way we have column row, right? Not row column. No, it makes more sense to have it the other way. I like it the other way better. Row column makes a whole lot more sense. So that we'll leave that the way it is. If j blah 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 blah, if j modulus 2 is equal to 0, reposition equals negative hex height. And then we put that into the position. But it's returning the same for... I think I know what the issue here is. Let me see. Let me see if I figured it out. Let's go ahead and comment out this so that we're not doing any of this. We're not repositioning at all. Oops, need that on this side. There we go. Now we're not repositioning at all. And let's go ahead and get this grid back here. And we want to be moving on the z-axis. Yeah, that is correct. We want to be going down 0.88, or 0.866. But only if the... Well, we do want it if it's odd, actually. So if it's not equal to 0f, what happens? Because what I was doing was 0, 1. Okay. But it seems to be basing it on the row, not the column. Which is a little bit strange to me. I'm sure I'm missing something really, really simple, and you've probably already figured it out. But I am missing something here that is causing this to affect the row instead of the column. We need to be changing the z position. So with us changing the z position, well, one thing we're not doing is we're not saying map I.add new object. Okay, so now the object is being added to the map so we can access that a little bit more easily. But with that being the case, that isn't going to change anything here. So why is this reposition working on the rows rather than on the columns? Well, let's see here. IJ. Yeah. Okay. Once again, I'm sure you figured it out and you're screaming at me in the comments section right now, if I have someone in the comments section. Which is maybe a little bit surprising if I do. However, what we have here is an issue. And the issue is simply something that I'm not seeing. So we create a row, and then for everything in the row, we create a column. Oh, I know what the problem is. Yeah, I know what the problem is. We need to be checking if I is the even or the odd one here. I am an idiot. Okay, that should solve the problem. There we go. That's more like it. Look at that. Perfect hex grid. Now, as far as the coordinate system is concerned, the coordinates are square coordinates. These are not anything fancy. So this coordinate here, or this hex here, this is 0, 0, this is 0, 1, so on and so forth. 0, 2, 0, 3, this one is 1, 0, or rather 0, 1, and so on and so forth. But that's okay, because we now have ourselves a nice little hex grid. Now, one thing we can do is we can start working on getting some height in this. That is a possibility. However, one thing that I would like to do very, very soon is get ourselves a nice material. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a new folder, materials. And we will create ourselves 3 materials. These will be hex material for now. And then we will create ourselves another one. This will be border material. And we will create ourselves a third one, and this will be cliff material. So for right now, I'm going to color hex material to be, I don't know, like a nice dark green. Something more saturated than that. Something kind of like that. Cliff material will be a nice deep gray. And then border material will be pure black. However, I do want to make sure that these are a little bit glossier. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Okay, and now let's pull out our hex prefab. And let's just apply these materials by dragging and dropping. There we go. Okay, and let's adjust these until I'm happy with where this actually is. We could use the albedo alpha as the smoothness source. Okay, I mean, I'm not super happy with that, but it'll do for now. So let's go ahead and run that and see what that gives us. That. I can't say I'm surprised, because we didn't save the prefab. Because I'm an idiot. Okay, once more. There we go. Now we have Unity controlled. We'll go ahead and save the prefab. There we go. Excellent. Double check that it didn't delete from our hex manager, and it did not. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is change our directional light a little bit. I want to make it be pure white for right now. And then let's go ahead and have the rotation on it be a little bit more dramatic than what we've got right now. Oh, that's very dramatic. Very dramatic indeed. Let's go ahead and have that be, you know, something kind of like that. I mean, it's a directional light, so it is what it is. Okay. And now I just want to mess with the hex material ever so slightly here. Maybe max out that smoothness. Yeah. Yeah, that looks nice. Now we can see that there's a bit of a divot between them. So that's all good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and next episode we will work on getting this map to be, you know, a little bit more interesting, shall we say. See you all then.